So next we're going to go over the syllabus and set our expectations for you and for me for the class. You know the location and the time because you're in the classroom. My office number is 3176H, which is right across from the Bitka Division office. If you need to stop by during my office hours, which are Monday and Wednesday, 11 to 1. I should have a class at 1, so get out of there 5 minutes early. And I have included my email. You can please email me on Canvas, or sometimes students email me via Gmail, which is fine, but I don't really use the phone, so probably best not to call me. And we'll check that. If you want to look at my website, it's listed here. And I link my Twitter feed to my website, and I often post on there sort of current events about programming and web and so forth. Okay, so this is ITC 240, and it's going to be an introductory class in a couple ways. One of them is that it is an introduction to programming. How many of you have had the ITC 110 or a prereq programming class? Some, but not all. Okay, so one of the goals for the class would be to understand fundamental programming concepts and then learn how to implement those in PHP. But these concepts are going to be, for the most part, program language agnostic, meaning that we have variables in every language. We have methods, functions in every language, classes in most, in the object-oriented languages and so forth. So we're going to learn these concepts and then learn how to implement them in PHP. And we also are going to learn how to work with a database, and we're going to use the OpenStack model, which includes the MySQL, which is the open source, well, now by Oracle, but the MySQL database. So we have to learn some database along the way as well, actually pretty heavy. And we're going to move from static to dynamic web pages, and then learn how to update the pages and essentially make them dynamic in a variety of ways on the server side rather than the client side. And we can talk more about the differences between client and server side languages and what each of them does. And so this is a fundamentals class, meaning that, again, the goal is on fundamentals, and you can take web apps 2 or 3 to build upon the skills. The same model that we have, which I think is successful with HTML and CSS, we have 3 web authoring classes, so it's the same. And we're going to talk about the get and post protocols and just learn that side, the server side of web applications. Even if you don't continue with web apps 2 and 3, it should still give you a solid fundamentals with PHP and web apps. All right, so some of the goals of the class will be to build a dynamic website, do some working with Unix and the underlying database, design and build a database. I will give you one with the Guitar Shop, and then we create some other ones in class as well. Theme a website and then learn how to change the designs. Be modular with your site by including include files. Work with web forms and form handlers, send email, and work with cookies, and then talk about integrating third-party pieces into your applications, and last but not least, best practices for web security, because obviously that's very important. The textbook which is required for this class is this book right here. I really like this series, and I use it in some of my other classes. I guess you can speak if you liked those books. I think they're good, right? And we're not going to be able to get through the entire book as much as we would like to do so, but we will get through, well, probably about 20 chapters or so, but you please do get the book if you haven't done so already. The book also comes with source code material. I think I posted a link under your assignment one. We're going to look at this next. So that is very helpful. You get a lot of source code to work with. and database as well. So make sure to download it, and I'll talk about this later. You need to have internet access. You need to have web server space, and I'll talk about this as well. You will need a text editor, so we'll talk about this, and an FTP client. The evaluation in the class will be based on weekly assignments. More or less every week, we're going to have an assignment that is due at the beginning of the following week before class. And we're going to have 2 quizzes, a midterm and a final. And everything in the class, if completed per requirement and turned in on time, is worth 100 points. So the total you can receive in the class is 100%. And then you can do the conversion. I have included the College Board conversion table here to show you based on your percentage where you are, with a 4 scale, which is what we have in the college. You need to turn in your homework on time to receive full credits. If you turn it in late, 20% off will be taken automatically. So you don't want to stay on top of your time management, because it's a skill you simply have to have if you to get a job. So make sure to do that, and also just stay on top of your time management. If something comes up, it inevitably does for all of us, then just contact me and I'll work with you, but not if you just disappear and then come back at the end of the quarter. And, so just manage yourself, and that will help you when you get to the job, I promise. If you turn in your homework 3 days late, you receive 0 points for this particular assignment. And then we have a criteria for what is going to comprise 100% grading points, and I will go about this in a moment. And to receive the full credits, you need to follow the technical specifications as well, meaning that whatever the requirement specifies, you must execute it exactly as is to receive full credit. And again, that's a skill you need in the real world. Those of you who have experience will confirm. Okay. Attendance for the class is not mandatory, but highly encouraged. As you can see, I'm recording, so I will provide this information, the links for you. You can watch the videos, but it's very different experience to be able to have interaction with your peer students, or with myself and Mark, and it really helps learning. We're finding that there is a lot of hype around MOOCs, the massive online open courses, as you probably know, but the research is showing that they're not as great as initially everyone thought, because you're on your own, and it really makes a difference to your learning to be, with a real interaction with real humans. So that's about attendance. Let's see what else we have here. Well, this is a programming class, so that means that you must spend time in class and possibly several hours outside the classroom coding. You cannot learn coding without coding, so be prepared and just make a note. You will need to spend hours coding outside of the classroom as well. Otherwise, you cannot learn to code. Mentioned about the lecture recordings, and I highly encourage you to work with others. So please, some of you have different maybe skill sets, and if your neighbor doesn't know something that you do now, share your experience, that's great. But as far as your homework, please turn in your own. Don't, unless we may have a peer programming session, but generally you need to be honest about turning in your own homework. If you need special accommodation of any kind, please let me know after class, and also you should go see Al Suma in room 1112 if you haven't done so already. And then lastly, I have included the schedule, which is subject to change because it really depends to a certain extent on how the class is. Not different classes simply go at a different pace, so I do have a little bit of padding or flexibility around that. So in week 1, we're going to learn how to set up domain and hosting. And then the lectures will correspond with the book chapters. I might switch some lectures around I might move arrays up, for example, but generally you have hopefully create you helpful, useful structure that the chapters will correspond with the book, and you have multiple references to the same material to help you learn better. I guess I can go over these briefly. So this week, in addition to setting up the environment, we're going to go over web development with PHP, just overview of the general overarching architecture of web applications, create a simple PHP app, and then we're going to continue. Chapter 2 usually covers all the basics, so it's a long chapter and it will take us a couple, probably a couple sessions to go over. Then we're going to do an intro to relational databases, RDBMS with MySQL, and then learn how to use PHP with MySQL, talk about the MVC pattern, and if we're falling behind this one chapter, I might move further back. So we're going to learn in week 4 how to test and debug an app, working with form data. And in week 5, we're going to learn about control statements, how to make decisions or how to create loops in PHP, and as well as work with strings and numbers. In week 6, we're going to talk about dates. If you think about it, dates are very prevalent in any kind of business application. So we learn about the date, how to work with dates in PHP, and we'll have a midterm quiz at that time. So I will be giving you ungraded quizzes during the most weeks. And then I recommend for you to start a Google Doc, and then you're going to save your responses to the Google Doc, and you can use this as a review or study guide for your midterm and final. Okay. And then so week 7, arrays, and then cookies and sessions. Week 8, functions and objects. Week 9, regular expressions, and then expanding on PHP with MySQL. And then week 10, secure websites and sending email. And the week 11 is the final quiz. So that's what we are looking at covering for those well. Do you have any questions on the syllabus at this time? Like expectations for the class?
Did you say we need our own space? Can we not use Edison?
Yeah, I'll talk about this. Edison is a space you can use up to the point when we start using databases, and then you can't use it anymore because it doesn't have.
Is Dreamhouse okay?
Yeah, that's the one I'm going to recommend. But we're going to talk about this in a moment, so that's one of our next topics. Let's see here. Okay, so the screen share. Let's see this. So let's go over to Canvas next. Is everyone able to log in? Okay, do you have your Canvas login? I assume that you do then. Mark, do you have anything to add at this point?
No.
Not yet?
If you're taking more than 3 classes, do the classes, some of the classes not show up in courses when you click the left-hand tab for courses? Because I'm getting your assignment notifications and your announcements, but it's not showing up in my course list. It's also showing up on my calendar.
Huh.
Yeah, like that.
Have you maybe not selected it as favorites? So if you have, if you say all courses, I don't know if your view is the same, but you need to go to my courses and list all your courses, and the only ones that show initially will be the one that you actually star as a favorite. So maybe that's why. Otherwise,
Perfect.
Awesome. Okay. Wait. Okay, so next I would like to show you how I structure the canvas so you know where the materials are. if there are any announcements, they're going to go under announcements. And actually, maybe now it's a good time to mention, if you like to join, we have a Seattle Center of Web Development and Design Facebook page, and some of you I know already are on it, but please feel free to join, and we have a lot of great exchange of information there, and also sometimes job postings. Okay, so Seattle Center of Web Development and Design. If you have any announcements you'd like to make, and please do, relevant to the to the subject matter, then please post them on the discussions. The syllabus, if you need to reference it again, is going to be under syllabus. And the content for the class is delivered in weekly modules. So each week I'm going to post a new module for you. Here's week 1, and the way those links work on Canvas, you have to click twice. So remember that. And then you can change your list view or like that. And usually there will be some code, and then some lectures, and then some other supporting documents. So that's going to be the format for every week. And every week we will likely have assignments. So I have an assignment 1 posted now. Let's look at that. And it's due on April 12th at 10. It's a non-graded assignment, so this assignment will have to do with you setting up your environment. Let's take a look here. And this assignment actually doesn't have the grading criteria for a code because there is no code, but once we get, next time I'm going to post it and I'll go over it at this time. So I guess let's talk about the setup of the environment right now. And so normally, and including in the book, when you develop PHP applications, you will download something like a XAMPP or LAMP, which is your, it's a local server.
Right.
Is there a problem?
That computer's restarting.
Oh, okay, well, maybe you can.
Okay, good.
Right. So it's very common, and when I've taught this class before in another school, to have a local server that you use for testing purposes instead of uploading online. But we don't have this here. And Mark and I are going to show you an alternative setup that you can just directly upload. But if you want to download on your own machine a local server, you can use Appendix A in the book, and it will guide you through downloading and setting up the XAMPP local server. And what that means is that you are able to develop your PHP applications and PHP and or SQL applications, and then run them on your local machine, and they're going to look the same as if they were online, but it simulates an online setup except it's local. So it's convenient for testing. And a lot of people use it. We're not going to use it, but I think the setup we have here is fine as well. So if you wanted to, again, like I said, I guess I just said this, but if you wanted to get XAMPP, get it for your own machine, that might be something worth exploring. The way we're going to do this for the class in the classroom is the following setup. Magnify a bit here. So here's what you need. You need to have a text editor, and we're going to use brackets in class because we have it here and it's pretty nice. And I always say recommend it because if you want to use something else, you don't have to use brackets. It's up to you, but at the same time, if you're using something I'm not familiar with, I might not be able to troubleshoot it for you. So it might make sense for you to use brackets unless you're using something and you're comfortable with it, Sublime or whatever it is. So do get brackets on your machine, and it's cross-platform and cross-browser, and it's free. So you need a text editor, and we're going to write our applications in that editor. Then maybe I should change the order here. You need to get your application online, right? So to do that, you need something called a web client, and the one we have installed in the classroom, and which is, I recommend, is the FileZilla. Who has not used the FileZilla? A couple of you haven't used it yet? Okay, so we're going to learn how to use it. So you need to have FileZilla, and then you need to set up your own domain and host. And I have a document about that, so maybe let me just go through those steps and then I'll go to the other document. But you will need to have a domain and host, and there will be two ways to go about it. Mark, do you want to tell us, since I've been talking so much, the two ways to get a host and domain?
From your offline?
Like what would we be using to test our PHP applications? We can do, I guess I'll just say. We haven't even met.
We haven't even yet.
Right. Okay. So we can do right now Edison, or you can set up your own host and domain, such as DreamHost. And the funny thing is that I do recommend DreamHost, but I have GoDaddy because I have GoDaddy. I've had it for a long time, and I will not, I will just not. I haven't had the time to move my stuff or the inclination. And a lot of people don't like it. I have not really had problems with GoDaddy tech support, at least, except just once they gave me their own information, but I knew. Generally, they're okay, but a lot of people don't like them. So I would say DreamHost is your recommended host provider. And also, for your first assignment, do start a Google Doc where you're going to be adding class materials and answers as we go through the class. And it's going to be in one place for you to reference. And finally, please download the applications and exercises accompanying the book. And here is the link. I lost my pointer yesterday. I think I forgot it somewhere. Okay, and then once you have the downloads, please put them on your flash drive and bring them to class. All right. Yes.
Right, so just one thing about DreamHost, if you haven't set it up yet, get started on setting up DreamHost now, because it takes longer than you think. A lot of people wait until the class is being needed, and it's going to take like a couple of days. So, and there's also a deal for students for DreamHost.
Why does it take so long to set up? Because I got mine like a year ago, and I've never done it.
Right, so you should check in and make sure that it's working. Because it's like, well, just to get your domain and be able to upload, it takes time for them to actually set up a domain for you. It can take like.
Well, I have the domain name, like I bought it, but like I've never done anything after.
Yeah, so it would be good to check in because it might not just work. They might have some extra steps. Luckily, DreamHost has a really awesome tech support. Just use their little chat tech support, and they'll get everything.
Hey guys, in the back there, there's some disturbance. He's saying some important information, so
About DreamHost?
Yeah.
Can you stand up, Mark? How do you read that?
Can you not hear me?
Not so well. That's why we were asking each other what we thought you were saying.
Oh, okay. I was just saying that DreamHost usually takes maybe even a couple days to get set up, so don't wait until the class that you need it. So just start it now. And using their chat support, they have a little chat box that you can chat with them, and they're really quick to get you all set up. And there's also a deal that you can get as a student, but you have to, I don't know the link to it.
The way to do it successfully, I'll stand up now. No joke. Just Google DreamHost student discount. It'll propagate the URL, which I don't remember. Something like education promo /DreamHost. Google it.
All right. I guess maybe I'll make a note to ask Lizzie if we have some special. I should have done this ahead of time, I guess. Do you have the information? That'd be awesome. Okay. Just Google it, okay? Just Google it. Okay, so thanks for those. That's exactly the kind of thing I'd love for you to just, add on, make the discussion richer. And by the way, GoDaddy also has a chat, and they're pretty responsive as well. Okay. So let's go over this document here. So you do need this domain and host. So what is the difference between a domain and a host? Well, does anyone want to say? I know a lot of you have a domain. So what is the domain?
Your site?
So what is your domain? Sophia, you have a website. What is your domain?
It's like the namespace for your website. It's just like the address that people arrive to is your domain. But in terms of like actually having content on that site, you have to have it hosted. You have to have a server that has space where they store that information.
Right.
So that once people go to your domain, they'll see stuff.
That's right. So we need both. We need both the domain registered and the host. I've talked here a little bit about XAMPP, and again, XAMPP is a local server, so it's a different thing altogether, just to be clear. Is there any confusion about the local versus the domain and hosting? No? Okay. So to select a hosting company, we have a couple choices. One of them is DreamHost, and the other one is GoDaddy. And they're going to give you the space. How much does it cost? I guess for DreamHost is about $30.
Oh, that's super cheap.
It's
for like
cheaper
a
now?
year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right. And for GoDaddy, mine is, I want to say, less than $5 a month. So, Jen?
So, I'm in, Ward 120 with, Sarah Newman. And, they were very adamant about not using GoDaddy.
Yeah.
And they, well, but my point is that if you're gonna take a class with them, they're not gonna be supporting you if you have your site on GoDaddy. So if you think you're gonna be taking a class with the Newmans, either the Newmans, you might wanna just like repost.
Yeah, that's probably a good consideration. We just talked with Bill about this, and again, that is true. If you're planning to take, which you probably will, take a class with Bill, he likes DreamHost better. But my experience with GoDaddy has been okay too, so I'm just sharing that. Probably DreamHost is your better bet. But we want to be democratic about the different host providers. All right, and so registering a domain, if you use DreamHost, is going to be free, which is another reason why you might want to do so. And you can register one through GoDaddy, and recently, at least for me, Google domains also are starting to show up, so you can get a domain through Google. Google obviously is, taking over the world, so they're doing everything I can think of. They're doing it. And then setting up the hosting, I wish I could give you. Well, I do have some hints for DreamHost, but you will need to really follow the directions for your provider. Okay, the information you need to have is the site name, the username, and the password, and you will need those so you can use them with your FTP client. And they are going to come from your hosting company. I can't give those to you. They will be sent to you in email, and then you can use them. In fact, one of my concerns is that I don't actually know my password because it's always on my laptop. So we'll have to see when I have to upload something from here if I remember how to do that. So you do make a good note of this information. And you need to have FileZilla. So if you don't have it on your machine, go ahead and install it. We do have it installed here. So FileZilla. same principles at play, right? So you can have preferences, but we are going to, no matter if you use GoDaddy or DreamHost or Bluehost or whatever else, we're learning the same process. Just, you should be clear about that, right? Okay, and so another way to go about having a web server is to go to the Seattle Center or Edison. How many of you have used Edison or are using it? Okay, great. And again, the one note about Edison is when you start using database, you have to at this point be ready to move to DreamHost.
And I think there's sort of a 40 megabyte limit.
Yeah, we're going to look at this in a moment. Exactly. And again, you can use FileZilla to FTP or local files to Edison. There is a reasonably well-documented link here. So I just linked to that about the student web services, and it's going to walk you through how to set up your web space if you haven't done so already. The name of the server is Edison, seattlecentral.edu. You're going to need to find your username on EdNet, so maybe I'll do this real quick as well. And I know for some of you it's a review, but this is a basic class, so we're going to just go over everything. So EdNet login. And it's going to be by last name. So my last name is M. Somewhere here. And so this is my username, and my password or your password is the last 6 of your student ID. So that's what you need. And the third box here for the host is going to be the, where is this? This is the host name. All right. And then you need to read through this carefully, follow all the instructions. It's a lot of it, but if you follow them, it's going to work for you. You need to use passive mode with FileZilla. There are some tips and guidelines that you should look through. Every quarter we have a case where there is a problem because somebody was not aware that the server is case sensitive. So you need to make sure to use lowercase. I mean, you can use either one, but I recommend just using lowercase. But the different cases are going to mean different names since it's case sensitive, and that could be a problem. Actually, it will be a problem. Okay, only transfer the files to your public HTML directory. And that's true for GoDaddy and I guess for every. What is it called?
DreamHost is your, it'll say like your domain name, like .com. So if it's markfath.com, that'll be your folder.
Oh, okay.
That you upload.
That's your public folder. Okay, so great. And you have 100 megabytes now, apparently.
Oh.
So. So once you have this set up following the instructions, wait, let's see. I was going to show you. I have some stuff on here. What is it? So I have some stuff, and you have to, it's going to be a tilde, which is right above the tab with the shift, and then your username, and then that's where you put your files. Any questions or comments so far? No? All right, so here is a document with DreamHost setup hints. And I will let you read through it.
Does anyone have a link for the student discount? I can't find it. I put it in the session. Oh.
Okay.
not easy to figure out there.
So we have looked at these. So I guess I'll just say one more time what needs to happen for next, maybe not for, hopefully for Thursday, but at the very least for next Tuesday. So by next Tuesday, you need to have either Edison up and running, you need to have a place where you can upload your files. Edison is the most easy and it's cheap if maybe, you know, if you can actually afford to buy the Dreamhost right now. So get Edison set up. Otherwise, if you're ready, go ahead and get yourself Dreamhost, or another option is GoDaddy, and get it set up so that on Monday you can start uploading files. Right.
Professor Meredith?
Sir,
Dreamhost.com/PRONO/EDU.
could you post a link or you're not on campus?
I already did.
Oh,
Okay,
she already did.
well, thank you both. All right, well, let me show you a little tool here as well. So we have a, you might have heard of PHP Fiddle. It's a cloud-based IDE. Who knows what an IDE is? Integrated, dang it.
Integrated development environment.
All right, so it's an integrated development environment and allows you to execute PHP online. So if you have some quick file, you can actually run them in PHP Fiddle instead of having to go through the process we just described. So it's a little bit of a shortcut. And we're going to play with it a little bit. Just wanted to bring it to your attention. Well, it's almost time for a break, and I feel like we are at a good stopping point because when we resume, I would like us to create our first PHP app, and then I have a lecture for you. So let's take our break now until 11:05 and resume at that time. It's fine. Yeah.
Are you getting for? Where? Are you getting? But what if it was something like 7 years ago, you were on board with Airbnb on the launch, right? Yeah. Wow, I read or every time I get to see who started that home phone, started 4 other companies. I'm sorry, I know it is. They are. What's your name? Brandon. Brandon? Yeah. Oh, I know. It's a little familiar. Maybe it's just. Yeah. How are you?
left the corner open for me, thanks. Are you charging your phone for the desktop thing?
Fine.
Let me help you out. We're friends now. Nice to meet you.
I know.
I'm sure you can amazing. The Egyptians invented this thing after Iraq and slavery called a USB port. Right? Just cut the coder. Hold on. Your phone charger got taped. Your phone charger goes from the
Oh.
charge your phone phones on you. So you need an actual wall outlet.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Just get an extension for this. How old is your laptop? The battery doesn't last.
No, it does. But it dies eventually.
That's true. Shots, sir. Hey, Liz, what are you doing today?
Tonight?
Yeah,
Class.
Yeah, let's get it. Born. Bring, I don't know her name, Sarah. She made that up. First of all, I believe every dog. She exists. I think it's the movie at one screen with some nonsense, but it's supposed to be comedy and listen probably. If you want to come,
7 to 9. I mean, Sammy will come here.
she's mine. That's the number 130.
162 is Andrew Johnson.
It's impossible because she has 130. 7 o'clock.
7 hours.
I wonder if Steven's there. Do you know who? Holly? No, that's an instructor. What do you know? Tall guy. Super generic. Illustrator, short, cross. No, he was angry. I don't know. He looks like Vice Christmas.
I think I'm going to
Let's do it.
pushing 1, no, wait, 3.
In the daytime?
7.
That's the best time. Let's do it.
I said I only have 3 hours.
Yeah. No, we'll scratch it from that. How's Roscoe?
Oscar's good. Yeah. It's cool. He's like on a hike yesterday. Went to Mount Tenerife. Over to Cotton Falls.
That's crazy.
Sounds like it. That's what they call it.
I'm so sorry. Oh, hey, too. No, yeah. How are you doing? Good. You know Dave? He's been in some classes for me. Do you know Liv? Just through me. Yeah, I guess now. She's pretty skilled at database.
No.
She got like an A+. You know? How did you do in that class? What do you do? You were in database, right? Together. We're in different
Yeah,
classes.
C#, but
Oh, C sharp.
yeah,
I did you in this place. I know. Oh, and the only thing I got out of it was the joints. No, I'm just gonna do the assignments and then turn it on, it's gonna grade them, and then we can grade it. Because the reality is, 3 other people, like this class, but hey, how'd you do in the class? I'm like, really? Come on. I got it, dude. Do you know why? Because you guys wanted it on something. You have a car, parking garage. Yeah, but I had like a job, you have a job. Of course you did. You never heard that? Yeah. Some people have like families. Like Steve, you know Steve. Huh? No, not Jerry Steve. Glasses, ball cap, walks from Queen Anne Steve. Walks. He walks 45 minutes from Queen Anne all the way back. Worked it out. All right, worked it out. Yeah. Probably had nice boots. Yes, he did. They had a nice jacket. Yeah, he bikes. Anyways, we'll call him Speed Steve because he enjoys it. No, he was a speed skater when he was a kid, competitive in Michigan. No, it's when he texted me yesterday. Oh, I'm going to Calgary to see someone with speed friends. I mean, speed friends, just in case there's any, like Calgary goes down. Yeah, what, yeah, man.
Like this word should use it for me on one time. This should show us. It's, I don't use it yet, but it seems like kind of like my PHP admin.
Oh, this is great.
Yeah. Did you see that $1.4 million TSA app?
No.
It's literally
The
just like,
robot?
it randomizes an arrow going left or right. So this guy replicated the app in like 10 minutes on Android Studio.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so this costs like $4 million for like testing and like all this stuff.
Wow.
But literally, it's just an arrow that either goes left or right. Once you taps it, he taps it.
Wow. That's very funny.
Right, it's crazy.
You gotta keep the right contract.
I guess that's what it is, right?
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what we were talking with. Do you remember Cliff?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking that essentially like most of the apps on the App Store are like a crowd. It's just very simple.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
we know now how to do this.
that was, it was like, seriously 10 minutes, and most of it was just like an emulator loading.
Right.
It's like,
Like that's
like-
I didn't like to see 162 or not.
Yep.
Okay, that's funny.
Yeah, I'm excited for that class.
Me too, although I heard that we have some issues with the
Android
setup
Studio.
right now. So
Always.
always. I'm glad to know that.
I just got it on the computer, so.
Right, always. Okay, so it's actually 1 more minute and we'll start. Are we not on screen share?
Yes. Great.
Okay, well, it's time to resume our class. Well, let's go ahead and create our very first PHP app. So, let's see here, I'll show you something. So, I could. This is what our app is going to do, and what I wanted to show you is that when you look at the source code with an app that has PHP, you actually can't see the PHP. So it only shows the HTML. But let's go ahead and create the app, and then those of you who have Edison or DreamHost, you can upload it and run it, and those of you who don't, will just have to look at it on my machine. And we're going to use brackets. So you probably have worked with brackets, but in case you have not, it really helps to set up a folder for brackets and then set up this folder as your working folder, and then everything works within brackets. Otherwise, you have problems with opening files and running them and syncing them. So I go ahead and create a folder on your desktop or somewhere. I named mine temp. name it whatever you like, put it whatever you like. And I'm going to go now in brackets, click on Get Started, open folder, and I will select the temp folder I just created. Yours will be blank. I have some lectures I put in here. You should just have a temp folder. And so let's go ahead and we're going to create a file, and I'll save as, so new file. And let's save it as first.php. And we're going to start adding our PHP. So the PHP code is going to go in the PHP tags. So everything in here is going to be PHP. We're also going to have HTML on the page, so we can mix. One of the first thing I can tell you is we mix the different languages or scripts on the page. So this will be our PHP, and we're going to add a comment. The comments are the same as the other C family languages. We're just doing this with JavaScript as well, and Java happens to be the same. So // is us telling the execution engine that we have a comment. The comment is something in a program that is actually ignored, and it's not going to be produced, executed, or interpreted by the script, but rather is just for the use of the programmer. So it's like a note to ourselves or to someone else, to another human who is reading the program. So usually we include PHP before the first HTML tag. So this is a comment, and it's grayed out, so it tells you that it's a different, different markup versus anything else on the page.
How do you block comments?
You do them with a C#. C#. Is the same as other C languages. That's correct. Is there a hand raised there? Yeah, you guys can see very well. Let's see what.
It's probably because it's gray.
Okay, let me see what I can do. No, that's not going to do it.
Oh, we could turn the lights off.
Oh, you can turn off the lights. That'll be good. If you want to turn off the lights, yeah, feel free. How is that? Is this better?
Yeah.
Can you see all the way back there? Thumbs up? No? Can you see at the very back?
I can only speak for myself. I don't think I should speak that much.
Okay. All right, and now we're going to create a couple of variables. In PHP, so first of all, what is a variable? Oh, this is so dark, it's making me sleepy. We're going to create some variables, and in a programming language, what is a variable? A variable is, you can think of it as a container. When we have some data that we want to use throughout our program, we store it in a variable, which is a container for this data, so that we can use it at another time. And in PHP, the variables are going to be always starting with a $, as we're doing here. So we're going to have a $, first name. And my first name is Tani. You can put your own. And so we have a couple different things going on here. We're declaring what we call declaring a variable, and then we're using an equal. An equal in computer programming is not the same as an equal in mathematics. In mathematics, an equal means that the left and the right side are the same, right? But here, the single equal means assign. It's an assignment operator, and it's going to assign the right-hand side, the value in the right-hand side to the left-hand side. In other words, we're assigning the value, the string, in this case, the text Stani, to the first name. So now the variable first name contains the string Stani. And a string is another word we use in programming for text. And in many languages, including PHP, we're going to use the quotation marks to indicate that this is text as opposed to something else. We are also going to have a last name. Oh, and note here, there are a couple of different ways to, there are different styles as far as how you declare your variables. So one style, and I'm using it because it's used in the book as well, is that you separate your, if you have multiple words with an underscore, you separate the words with underscore. Another very popular style is camel case, which is that you start with a lowercase, your first word is lowercase, and then if you have subsequent words, their first word uppercase. I'm going to go the same as the book so we can be consistent. You can do, probably if you're starting out, do what I'm doing, but the main point here is that whatever you do should be consistent, so don't mix the different styles, okay? So then we have another variable called last name, and then you can put your last name. And note, I guess I forgot this as well. So did you see the semicolons we put at the end? So the semicolons are part of what we call the syntax of the language. And the syntax of the language is essentially the grammar of the programming language. Every programming language has its own grammar. And unlike natural human language, which is pretty loose and you can say things in different ways, you can use, synonyms, you can, your grammar may be perfect or maybe not so good. And you can get away with that, and other humans are going to generally understand what you mean. But with a programming language, you have to be very precise about the syntax because the computer will not understand, it's not ambiguous. It will not understand ambiguity well, so you have to be precise. And the way to be precise is to use exactly the correct syntax specified by the language. And this language, this syntax is what we're going to learn. Is this funny somehow?
No.
Am I amusing? We're going to learn the syntax. I mean, I like to be amusing, so that's cool, but I was just curious. So we're learning here some of the basic syntax rules of the language. And so a semicolon means we're ending a statement. Semicolon, and then this tells PHP, okay, so this statement is done, and now we're going to go on to the next statement. So these are the semicolons which you need to put at the end of each statement of your code. Then we're going to have another variable, and this is going to be a pet type. And so you can put your favorite pet here, pet type, if you're, whatever that might be. And pet breed. So when I type and talk, I make typos. So if you see me making a typo, let me know, please. And so this is our PHP so far. We have added a comment. Probably indent this. We have added a comment, and we have declared several variables. That's what we have done. This is considered a single line, even though it wrapped around. The reason that's happening is just because my font is so huge, but this is considered a single line comment. All right, and now we're going to add some HTML. Just add the body, and then we should have the head here, but I'm just going to add the body for now. And I'll have a welcome. So the class assumes that you're very solid with HTML and CSS, and if you're not, then I guess I need to make a note to put some resources. I was thinking of putting a couple W3 schools quizzes there, W3 schools quizzes where you can test your HTML and CSS. If you feel like you need to do that, maybe you feel like you're fine as is. But if you're maybe, well, I took HTML a long time ago, I don't know if I know what is an attribute and what is a class and all that, then I'll put some links for you to test yourself and then maybe review from there as necessary. All right, this is like super basic, but eventually we may encounter some more complicated HTML as well. Okay, so we're going to now say first name. And so this is our HTML, and now inside the HTML, in addition to the HTML rather, we can add some more PHP. So we see here that we can put PHP as well, mix it with HTML as well as put it separately. Whereas with JavaScript, for example, I guess I'll be making a lot of comparisons with JavaScript because I'm teaching it in parallel. The JavaScript has to go in its own script tags in a specified location. It can only go in the body or in the head, but it cannot go all over the place as we see here. Okay, so we're going to have here starting some PHP, and then the echo command is the command is going to allow us to print to the window. So we print with echo, and then we're going to print the variable first name. I have to move this a little bit so you can see. So we're going to echo first name, and again that's a statement, so semicolon, and then close your PHP and close your HTML. So we just made our page dynamic because the first name is going to be, it's not particularly dynamic because what we have done up here is called, we have actually hard-coded the value of the variable. But the reason we're doing that is because we are learning incrementally, and the idea is that at some point, instead of hard-coding the variables up here, we can grab them from the user or from the database and then make this truly dynamic. But this is just our stepping stone in that direction. Okay, and then we're going to do essentially the same for the other variables. So last name. Excuse me. And finally, we have the brief. And here is your first PHP Hello World program. Now, we can't run this program here. If we were working with HTML or CSS or JavaScript, we could just actually run in the preview and view, but we can't do this here. If we had XAMPP installed, we could do this here, but we don't. So here's what we can do. To just see this program working, we can copy all of it. And let's see if we can use the tool I showed you, PHP Fiddle. And paste all of it. So you have to remove, they start out with some PHP, so we need to remove it here. And if you didn't make any mistakes or you know, syntax errors, not mistakes, rather syntax errors, you should have the output of your program to look something like that. If you have some errors, PHP Fiddle is probably going to tell you something about it. So let's just take a moment and make sure that everyone typed the code in brackets, was able to copy it successfully, and successfully run it from PHP Fiddle. That's our first little exercise, and then we're going to see if you can upload it to the server and run it from there. So take a moment, and as I showed you here, the file is available on my site, so it's the same. If I run it from here, it shows you the result, but you cannot look at the source code. So take a moment and maybe let Mark or myself know if you have any questions, if something is not working. Now, is PHP case sensitive? Well, for the most part it is. There are some keywords that are actually not case sensitive, but as far as your variable names, you need to make sure to be typing them exactly in the case that we are. The way you declare it, you need to use it afterwards in the same case. So first name, if it's spelled like that, you can't later on use it with a uppercase F, for example. This will give you an error. So let's maybe just walk around and see. Yeah.
Does it ignore white space?
Yeah, don't ignore white space. That's another basic thing that you mentioned. Thank you. Is everyone able to run this, or can I look at someone's to see if there are any issues maybe? Yeah.
How are they running this?
Oh, just yeah. So you got no, or no.
This reminds me, as we go to the class, if you have something you want to look at, please magnify your screen because it's very hard for you to see it. You can't help it.
I just get the code.
It looks like on this side everybody's got this first program working. And how about you? Are you working on something that's here? I don't know maybe to allow you, that's the one.
I think it's because I didn't select
So I need
it.
to bring it on there?
I'm surprised it's not there. It should be
Oh.
there.
I didn't.
Yeah, try, yeah, it should be there. That's one of the reasons we use brackets. So,
Oh.
so this side of the room, I guess, you guys have this working? Do you have it working?
Yeah, I got it.
I don't see anything that's not the same as yours, but it's not running.
I can do it.
I have to check.
So these are there, so that's helpful. So you have undefined variable first name and last name.
Did you have the same? Yeah. Oh. Did we? Yeah. I'm thinking about it. Just saying, oh, I have it.
There is something off because your color, oh yes, yes. His issue is that he doesn't have a, okay, take a look, maybe you should do it so you can practice. I think you're missing this, Daniel,
Oh, yeah.
so that's why the whole thing is red.
I'm getting the same place.
Oh.
But you have the same,
Question mark.
Oh, that's it?
there you go.
There it is.
All right. Any other questions, or can we move on? Did this work for you? Oh,
I had 3 errors.
oh wow.
Brendan fixed it.
Is it have to be fixed?
Yeah, I think it's these keyboards.
It's the keyboards,
Okay, so,
definitely.
if you pinky finger hits
For any like CSS that you add to like a P tag or
Just a second,
issue.
because you guys are both talking. I can.
Delta, you have
I wish I could do that.
But his
but-
is actually a question, his is a joke.
Okay.
So if you add like any type of CSS to like a P tags or add class, will it format to whatever's within those for PHP?
Well, it's a little. We have to talk about it a little more. It's not quite so straightforward. Any other questions? Okay, so yeah, we'll talk about the formatting part a bit later. Okay. So what I would like us to do next is to try for you to upload the file, but I don't know if that makes sense to do it right now because you all maybe not have the setup. So how about I give you a lecture of the big picture, and then we're going to take the same file on Thursday, and then hopefully you're set up by then somewhere. You should try to at least get Edison going, and then you can upload it, and we'll go through the process of taking your local, uploading it, and then running it not in PHP Fiddle, but on your own space. Does this make sense? Okay. Any other questions? All right. So you can see that the PHP Fiddle is very helpful. If you have some simple program, you can run it here. It will give you the errors without. It's not that once you're set up, it's not that hard actually to upload it to the server and look at it there, but it's very easy to use PHP Fiddle as well. Now, the one thing about the setup we're doing with uploading directly to the server, if you're working with a client, that'd be a good idea to do this. That would be a very bad idea, right? You don't want to ever directly upload to the server with a client there. You know, there was I don't know if you guys have seen the joke with the beer guy. I don't know. So, and so have you seen this meme with the beer guy who drinks beer and it looks really cool and there are all kinds of jokes? Who's he?
Dos Equis guy?
I think so.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
And so one of his jokes is, I don't always test my code, but when I do so in production, right? And, you know, we don't want to do that ever. But for our learning purposes, that's going to work just fine. So, let's see if this is what I want to download. So keep in mind that the nodes are going to refer to XAMPP, and if you're not using it, you can ignore it. But if you are using it, it's going to be a useful reference for you. Where should I stand? This is a new installation. It's really off to the side. Do you see what's happened here? It used to be in the center. Now it's to the side, and it's messing with my feng shui. I'm not sure what it's done. I guess I'll stand here. If I'm blocking you.
Oh, no.
Okay. So here is the architecture of a web application. I'll say it more, but savor it for a moment. Savor the power. So we have the internet, and to the internet we have connected essentially clients such as these machines we have here. We have servers, web servers, and database servers. So if you have a server is something that can contain files or some other stuff. If it contains websites, we refer to it as a web server. And behind any proper web server, there is going to be a database server because we're always working with data. So data is the heart of a lot of what we do. And the stack that we'll be using is the LAMP stack. We're going to use MySQL and PHP and Apache, and we're missing here Linux. So it's called a LAMP, Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. Okay, and that's a very common open source development stack. I've worked in a company that used it for production for the Lexus actually websites. So that's a very common stack. There are some other stacks that are used, an enterprise stack such as the Microsoft stack. So if you have taken MySQL, for example, Microsoft Server, Microsoft SQL, that's going to be part of the Microsoft Enterprise stack. It has a different web server to it, IIS, and so forth. So I'll focus on this one, but just keep in mind there are different configurations.
Are they usually like customized Linux distributions or use specific ones?
For the LAMP?
Yeah.
Well, they can be customized. I mean, they can be. I guess it's just depends what you want to do. You don't have to customize it, but you can. How about this one answer? Okay. And then we have email servers. And so we have some other terms you should be familiar with, I suppose. We have a LAN. Who knows what a LAN is? What do you call this? Local area network. So these are local area networks. And then we have several LANs that can connect to form a WAN, which is a wide area network. If you have the WANs are going to go through these like IXP points, and then they get routed. And essentially, this is what the internet looks like and how we connect our boxes or the servers through LANs or through WANs, and then routing around the entire internet. So some servers you may want some terms rather that you want to be familiar with would include what is a server and a client. And again, the client is your browser, the server is the machine that is going to contain the source files, the web files that get served to the client. The database is on the server side. So the important stuff is on the server side. It gets called by the client through a protocol, HTTP protocol. It gets presented in the client. So that's how those two are connected. And then we have Internet Exchange Point, IXP, and the ISP is something you're familiar with. ISPs essentially lease out rights for us to be able to use the pathways, if you will, on the internet to connect with other locations on the internet. Completely off topic, but really interesting. I'm reading a book called Wake, which is about this girl who is blind, and so you see how it connects. Indulge me for a second. So she's blind and she gets an experimental procedure to fix her sight, but something goes off, and instead of fixing her sight, it enables her to actually see the internet. Essentially what I'm showing you here, the traffic on the internet is colors. And so then it turns out that there is a sentient creature. I don't know if you read this book. So it turns out that she encounters this sentient creature. The internet has awoken. And so she meets this creature on the internet and so forth. So it's pretty cool. And you can see how it relates. I mean, for all we know, the internet might be sentient at this point, right?
What was that book called?
It's called Wake, and it's by Robert J. Sawyer. He's a Canadian author.
Non-fiction?
No, it's non-fiction. It's a documentary.
It's real.
No, it's a fiction.
Joker.
I'm a joker. All right. So back on track here. So the protocol that allows us to communicate between the web browser and the web server is the HTTP protocol. There are actually two protocols you need to be aware of. There is the protocol for the web browser and web server to communicate. And then we also, in addition to that, we need one protocol called TCP/IP, which allows the computers to communicate with each other. Okay. So the HTTP hypertext transfer protocol allows the browser to submit a request for data from the server, and then the server is going to get the request, check out the page. So what language is the request submitted? Is it PHP or what is it? Is it Python? Then it's going to call upon the correct program to interpret the response. So let's say it's PHP, and then it might have to generate the page or get a page from the server, and then it's going to send it back to the browser as part of the HTTP response. And so that's the protocol that allows the browser to communicate with the server. So we can have a simple get HTTP request. We can have some responses here, and we can generate the page back to the client, such as this very basic one. As I mentioned, we need two different types of protocols that have to be in place for us to use web applications. And actually, so we can't both. What is the difference between a web page and a web application? I guess I didn't really state that yet. Who's going to tell us? How about you? Oh, Jen? She
No.
has been.
No. I'll know that.
Why are you raising your hand?
Oh, I don't know, I was gonna take a stab at it.
You're also raising his hand.
Oh, really? So does it have something to do with the fact that you, are interacting with the page as opposed to it just being static?
It has to do with that. Yes, I think that's a good start to the definition. All right. So it has to do with the fact that you can interact with the page. Anything else to add? Danny, you were raising your hand?
I was gonna say the static and dynamic, it's like input and output.
Okay. Well, static and dynamic in input and output are not.
Well, like
How are they?
giving it data or
Right.
taking in data.
Right. So if you get to the point where you're giving it or taking data, then you have something dynamic. You can start referring to it as an application. A static page is essentially an informational page, like, hi, this is my page. Here's a picture of my cat. That's static. But then, hi, let me query what kind of products do you have in your database, and that becomes an application. Mark, would you have anything to add to this discussion? Not at all?
Linking on my definition.
Alright, so again, if we have PHP, for example, here, we're going to have a PHP script which the server is going to interpret as PHP, and it could be a different language as well. And I'm just stressing out that what we're learning is we're learning one particular implementation of something that is bigger than that, right? So you can have Python or Perl or some other scripting language. We just happen to be learning about PHP, which is a great choice, but it's not the only choice. Okay, and round trip, when the client sends a request, HTTP request, and then the server sends a response back, we refer to this as a round trip. Okay. And what is a database server? Is everyone, what is a database server? Anything else? Yeah.
A server that holds data.
So a server that goes there, yeah, let's go there.
What's an example?
There you go, that's a good question.
Well,
Do you
a
know any-
SQL server or MySQL?
Okay, SQL Server, MySQL, I can give you some other examples. There are some NoSQL databases like MongoDB, and then I am teaching the Android class, and the Android comes with a SQLite, which is it's an embedded database, which is more like, it's still SQL, but it's more like, were you adding something here?
Yeah,
All right, so here are some examples of browsers and servers. We're going to, I guess, stick with Chrome for the most part here. We'll be working with Apache server because there's a server that works with PHP. There's also IIS and some other servers. So again, we are narrowing, into something specific out of a bigger picture. Here are some examples of server-side languages. Actually, let's just back up from here. So, what is a client-side scripting language? JavaScript. I don't think there is anything else that's worth to talk about right now. Just JavaScript. JavaScript is the most popular language the most popular programming language today. Isn't that crazy?
What?
I think it's a bit crazy, but. And so here's some examples of server-side languages. We have PHP. What does PHP stand for, by the way?
I just looked that up.
Thanks.
It originally stood for personal homepage, but it now stands for the recursive acronym PHP Hypertext Processor.
Right, PHP, I know, it's a recursive, so it's about as geeky as you can get. And then, so there's JSP. JSP is the Java server pages. ASP.NET is a server-side language with Steve, I should not say we. Steve teaches in the school, so that's again part of the Microsoft track. I wonder if, when I walk around the room, if my mic is picking up my voice. So, Perl, Python is an extremely popular language and is used for so many different, it has so many different uses, but including for scripting. And then here are some examples, I guess Josh was asking, of database servers, a couple listed here. So here is a brief history of PHP. Started in 1995, as Damien just said here. This used to be called a personal homepage, after which it was renamed to the recursive name. When we say recursive, maybe not everyone knows what we mean by that. So PHP, and then as you can see, PHP recursively also refers to the, if you read PHP, also makes the same letters, PHP. So that's a recursive. It's self-referencing, and that's recursive. Okay, does this make sense? All right. I think now we are on 5.6 is still the current version of PHP as of today. And then we're going to be talking a lot about MySQL. Essentially, it was bought by Oracle at some point, and it's been maintained by Oracle, and there are some issues, I guess, with them not releasing the code properly because they're a closed system company. But it's you can still get MySQL as a free edition. The community edition is free, and you can get it with Workbench, which is a tool which is used for like a graphical user interface to interact with PHP. All right, so here is one example of an application we're going to do. Is I don't know what time is it? 45. Here's an example of an application where you give it some information and then the discount percent, and it will. We're going to use PHP to calculate the discount. And those of you who have had other classes with me, we often do this kind of application to get started doing some kind of math. And so let's look at the code together. We're working with form. So this is a form, as you can see. When we have a form, the form is part of the HTML. And it has a couple of attributes that are going to be relevant to us as PHP developers. One of them is the action. Who remembers what the action attribute of the form does or indicates?
Sure is quiet in here.
Is it like the, I forget if it's submit or if it's the page that you go to after you submit?
Is the page that is going to process and then something else might get displayed. So the action is going to tell you in the action attribute you say who is supposed to process your page. And this is common that the processing of a form happens with PHP. So in this case, we have a display discount.php. So you're telling the execution engine, I want this form to be processed by display discount on the .php. Then we have another attribute called the method. Who remembers? I've talked about this many times. Who remembers what the method means. Well, I'll tell you. So the method is going to tell if you want to process the form. There are two possible ways: get or post. If you want to use post, this is commonly used with forms. The content is not going to be visible in the URL, and you can, in other words, it's more secure, and you have the ability to submit a larger amount of data. Okay, so this is the post. And the other option you can have here, besides post, is get, G-E-T. And get, if you had said get and then submit the form, then the URL is going to actually show the content of your form. So that's clearly not secure. But in some cases, it's appropriate to use because you can bookmark this page. All right. So get or post, depending on what you need to do. If it's a form, you probably want to use post. And the default, if you don't specify, the default is get. Okay. And then we have these name value pairs. The name, as you can see, of the field, and they're going to allow us, when we submit to PHP, to know which value corresponds to which entry or to which field. All right, so this is all part of the HTML. Do you remember the input type? So these are the text fields we're seeing here. Input type means something where you can type. So these are some examples of input. And then it has some CSS to format the form. We're going to do this next time. I think I'll just show you and I'll let you go because there was a good amount of information probably for today. So this is the CSS which controls the form display and the colors and formatting. And then here is the PHP. This is again the file that is going to process the form. By now, you already know that this is PHP, right? So we can just use this here. And then with the comments, it would help us to look over what the flow of the program is. And next time when we come in, our first task will be to hold this little form together, and then hopefully you can post it on your newly enabled web server.
Can you go back to the HTML? I don't remember how you call the PHP.
Sure. So there's a question I'd like you to ask. So you call the PHP by setting the action attribute.
Okay, right.
So do you all know what is an attribute in HTML? So attributes, these are examples of attributes. We have a tag, and then we have these actually key value pairs, an ID, it can be an ID, the image, the alt tag, the alt tag of the image action. So these are ways for us to give additional information about, in this case, the tags. And that's where we give the information of who is processing the form. And that's exactly the right question to ask because everything is going to have to connect somehow. And we just need to figure out how that happens. Okay? So you will not understand everything here by any means, but just the flow of the program. The comment again helps. So the first thing we need to do is get the data from the form. And we're going to use the post array. So this is an array. Those of you who have had any kind of programming language know that this is an array because of square brackets. Yeah. So we use the post array to get the product description, the list price, and the discount percent. And these are the names of the form input fields in the form, right? So that's how these connect. So an array is essentially a list that can contain, it's like a variable that can contain more than one data in it. So you have a list of data that you can contain. It's like a big, long variable. That's not the technical definition, is just to try to get you thinking about what an array is if you're not already familiar. Yes?
What's the name for putting the variables into the array? Could you just set this in different variables?
You can, you could. The reason we're doing it like this is because the way in PHP that is commonly used for getting values with a post or get array. Let me just, I guess I'll just draw an array for you here real quick. So the thing about the array is, what I said is maybe just, I feel like it's not enough. The key, so let's say this array right here, it's not only that it's a list of data, so for example, it contains the letters A, B, C, and D, but this is a list of data that is indexed. And what it means is that you can reference each of the slots by their index, and that's what makes it powerful. It's not just a set of data where the data is just thrown in together, but it's indexed, and then you know how to access each of the different elements in the array by the index. Okay, we're going to learn properly about arrays in a few weeks, but I think it always helps to just bring up the concept, even if you're not familiar with it, and then we're going to expand. Yes.
So the $ product description is exactly the same as the label in the brackets in the array. So does it always have to be exactly the same, or can you, or because in JavaScript we would have to, we would use a different variable name for it, right?
So this is a variable name that it makes sense for it to match, but it could be any variable name. It could be $myPart. That's not a good name, but it's a valid name. So the difference is between, does this make sense?
Yeah.
You can do certain things in programming that are valid. They're not going to break the code, but it doesn't mean they're good practices, right?
In JavaScript, did we do it differently then?
So remind me.
So like you call something from, like you have a class in HTML, and then you grab that and you make a variable for it in your JavaScript, you would call it something else, like EL.
Okay, right, so, right. That was because we were working with elements in the HTML. Right now, here we're working with the values. We're actually working with the values.
I got it.
So that's the difference. That's actually a very good question. Yeah. So we're working with the values, and that's why we use the values rather than the elements. We're not working with elements at this point.
Okay.
Okay, so we do get the data for the D4. There were 3 or 4 fields, and then we need to calculate the discount. And to do so, we're going to use these are all. If they start with a $, what did they say that they are? The variables. So we declare the variable for the discount, and then we are going to assign, it's equals an assign operator, a math expression. So this is what we call an expression. So the asterisk here, who might know? Do guys multiply? Yeah. So we're going to multiply the list price times the discount percent times 0.01, because we make it into a, we have to use the 0.1 so we can make it into percentages. And then we're going to get the discount. So see where this is here. Let's look at the visual here. So we have the list price and the discount percent. And then when we calculate it, you need to display the discount amount and the discount price. And now we're going to get back to PHP and look at the code that makes this happen. Here is the discount amount. It's the list price that the user entered, whatever it was, times the discount percent. And they entered it as 12.5. So in other words, we have to multiply by 0.01 so we can get a proper percentage, right? Mm-hmm. And then we're going to calculate the discount price. We're going to subtract the discount, which we just calculated from the list price. And then we're going to apply the currency format. So there are different functions you can use, or methods to apply formatting, which is very common, not just in PHP. And in this case, we can apply the number format, so we can format the list price as a numeric decimal value, which is appropriate for displaying. And we can also do a number format for the percent. Oh, and something else new here. Do you see these dots? Can you think what they might do? That's a good guess. Actually, it's not correct, but it's a very reasonable guess.
That's concatenate.
They're going to concatenate. I would if you can, that's a reasonable guess. But actually, it's concatenate. In many other languages, we use a plus sign to concatenate. In PHP, we use a dot. So what does concatenate mean? Maybe we should ask that question. Sorry? Okay, okay.
That she was saying, string.
String things together, just string together. Okay. So when we want to string together text, or sometimes text and variables, we use the dot to connect. So that when we display, it's going to have the dollar sign plus the number format. Now, how do we tell it the decimal? We want it to display like 25 point, let's say 55. We want it to display 2 decimals. Can you figure out here where is this specified on this line?
Is it inside the parentheses, the second value?
That's exactly right. It's going to be the number of digits is passed in as what we call as an argument to the number format, and that's where we tell it 2. If we set here 3, it's going to display 2.5, or if we tell it 1, it's only going to display 0.5, or whichever the case may be. So that's where that happens. And let's look again. So dollar sign number format, this price with the 2 decimals. So if we look at our visual, that's exactly what we see. Right? We concatenated the dollar sign, which is simply a string, to the amount we calculated, and we formatted with 2 decimals. And finally, we want to escape the formatted output. So we use another, this is like a great library of functions we use with PHP that are very powerful. And one of them is here to escape the format, or any unformatted input, such as if you have any tags, it's never safe to put those in a database. So you can use HTML special characters to remove them. And you don't have, it's a security consideration. You don't have to be concerned about a malicious action taking place by putting tags in your database. It's called a JavaScript injection. And then we want to display the result. So here is the code that is going to add inside span tags. Span, so it's an inline element. And it's going to print the escaped and formatted output. Okay, I think that's probably enough information for today. Do you have any questions or comments? Yes.
I'm just wondering about the data types, because you calculate with numerical values and then you concatenate them without.
That's a great question.
How does that work?
That works because PHP is one of the weakly typed languages, just like JavaScript, so it's going to automatically convert between the different types. And I think, not just me, a lot of programmers actually don't like this approach. You want to have a strongly typed language so that if the error happens, it will happen before you actually are trying to assign, some wrong type and then causing all kinds of problems down the road. So it's kind of like a lazy, not in a good way of programming. JavaScript is the same way.
Is span relative to the label that it's underneath?
Yeah, so it's going to be an inline element of whichever one it's referring to. That's correct. So again, I want to say one more time the answer to Gordana's question because it's important. In some other languages, such as Java or C#, you cannot convert between numbers and strings because they're different data types. But in PHP, it will automatically convert those for you, which is why we are allowed to do this here. Okay.
So what happens if you try to multiply a string with a number?
So there are some rules of the language that we need to look into when we get into the data type to see how they're handled by the language. That's right. Any other questions or comments?
Can you talk about why we use PHP as opposed to frameworks like Angular or other server builder, or not, other like application building frameworks?
Well, PHP is apparently PHP is currently used for 80% of the websites online. It's a it's a qualitative decision. We just have chosen PHP. We do teach Angular in the advanced JavaScript class. We actually started a little bit, as you know, in the Web 150. I think there is still a very good reason to learn PHP. If you learn PHP, it helps you knowing what is that framework that Mike Simple uses. I'm getting tired of talking. WordPress, right? WordPress. So I guess the reason is because there is still a lot of there are still a lot of jobs out there that use PHP.
I was thinking like if you knew both and you were trying to decide what to use when building an app, like what would be some of your considerations?
If you're building your own app, then you're your own boss and you can just decide what works best. If I was starting to do this now, I mean, even that's a subjective thing because what do I know, right? So if I have to learn a new framework, maybe I'll go with an older one. So if you're your own boss, you can make your own decisions and it's more likely that you're going to use a newer framework. But the reality is that all of the jobs out there actually do use PHP. And if you get hired by another company, you will have to most likely work within the framework that is already in place. And that's how I can answer your question. If you know that you want to work for a specific company, then you should go and check out their development stack and see what they're using, and then learn that particular technology. And this said, if you learn one technology, it always helps down the road to learn another one because there's a lot of similarity that takes place between them. I mean, AngularJS is great to know, and by all means, you should learn it, but I don't think you're at any disadvantage by learning PHP. The end. The end. What's your... Now, if you have any more questions, please do ask. Did we lose our recording again, or is it still going?